All right. Shout out to the mighty Who Dat Nation. Big ups to the fam. Shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Sports Coma. Get your prop bets in at FanDuel, man. We up in this thing. In this episode, man, we're going to cover the Saints cap. How about that? You're going to talk about that. How about what Matt Paris said of NOLA.com? Did a really interesting article about the Saints cap situation, as the Saints cap situation is now reflecting the absorption of several contracts. As you can see, the team's cap space is now went from $20+ million now down to 13.2 mil. As you can see what's going on. Now the Saints can restructure several more contracts to open up money, as they have 69 total active players on their current 27 roster, right? So the biggest base salary hit right now is Chris Olave at the 15.4 plus, operating on the final year of his rookie deal, after having a breakout season. Now, the Saints could simply extend him this offseason, which is something that we've heard that they're currently working on, and this will free up once they get that cap situation resolved, this could free up a lot of money for the Saints to operate going into the season. They're also they can still restructure contracts of Cesar Ruiz. That's base salary is at 9.5. Pete Werner, who's at 6.2. There are several other places they could ultimately go. You see Divine Gacho at 6.4, Pete Werner 6.2, as I mentioned, Nate Shepard at 4.7, and then you go down to people deep into the season. But like I said, there are several other contracts they can work on to free up even more cap space, depending on what the Saints. Now, of course, we talked about the fact that these new contracts that, the restructures that we talked about with the non-voided years, as the Saints are attempting to do things differently coming up into the season. So that's kind of covered that. Shout out to NOLA.com. If y'all want to source this article, please go to NOLA.com. Matt Paris penned this article. It's how the Saints salary cap strategy is changing this NFL offseason. Shout out to him. So the Saints no longer entering the void. Will be specific. The Saints no longer using voided years. That was the salary cap tactic for those who need a refresher, that allowed the Saints to essentially tack on dummy years to spread out, or zombie years, as I call them, a signing bonus and lower player cap hit, even after his contract has expired. Now, the workaround was a key strategy for the front office that annually walked the tightrope between staying competitive and staying under the hard set league cap. But the Saints are in a new era. What does he mean? As noted by SportTrack, none of the 9 contracts signed by the Saints this month have included void years this offseason. Not only is that a huge shift from the last few years, but it also signifies that the Saints finally see themselves out of the salary cap mess that they had to navigate. While tacking on voided years can be useful in the moment, the strategy can create long-term challenges if not managed properly. The Saints are taking more of a simpler approach this time around. The Saints contracts this offseason have been relatively straightforward. They're front loaded, giving them flexibility for the future. So, example, taking running back Travis Etienne Jr., 4-year, $52 million contract, for instance. A closer look at the deal reveals that the 27-year-old received a $12 million signing bonus, and that the first 2 years of his base salary at $2 million in 26 and $10 million in 27 are guaranteed, for a total of $24 million in guarantees. That essentially makes the contract a 2-year deal with 2 more team options after that, meaning the Saints can back out of this deal if Travis Etienne is not doing what he needs to do, or they feel like they're not getting the value from his production. It's an out. It's an out. So essentially they can get out of the contract in 2021. Cutting him would leave $6 million, right? And that would be cool. Essentially making it a 2-year deal with 2 more team options after that. Team options, meaning the Saints have the ability to control what happens there. The Saints have an easy out. Cutting him would leave $6 million, the rest of the already distributed signing bonus on the year books. So you can see the Saints moving some ways around. Now, the Saints' handling of A-Chain's contract is far from revolutionary. That's how most NFL contracts are structured. But the Saints, that's big because of how the team structured deals previously. Chase Young's 3-year, $51 million deal that was signed last season contained 4 voided years. Juwan Johnson's 3-year deal at over 30 million contained 2 voided years, right? Kicking a can. Look at Kai Hartley, smiles, all smiles. Not every Saints contract was set up that way. Carl Granderson's 4-year, $52 million extension back in 23 was structured very similar to Travis Etienne's deal this year, but the Saints had a habit of crafting those contracts in a way that they knew they would have to address down the line. So Granderson's contract, for instance, has been restructured for 3 years straight. It remains to be seen if the Saints will do that with A-Chain, but New Orleans notably had to restructure fewer contracts this offseason to open up the space. You know, according to Over the Cap, the Saints have nearly $13 million in unused cap space, factoring in another $7.6 million in cap space that you usually would spend for an incoming rookie class. It will take up. The Saints will have some wiggle room in case of other needs, and that's without having touched the contracts for Pete Werner and Cesar Ruiz for the obvious restructure candidates. So the Saints' end goal appears to be preserving the flexibility for 27 and beyond, with the parade of dead money from Derek Carr, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and several other players on the books this season. The Saints are projected to have more than $75 million in cap space next offseason, according to Over the Cap. That's the real reason, or the real money to spend. It coincides with Tyler Shuck entering the 3rd year of his rookie scale contract, which means, he coming in that 3rd year, it's going to be a hike in pay for him. It's going to be big money if he pans out like we think he is. If the Saints determine Shuck is worthy of that big time extension, you'll see it in 27 and 28, creating a window for the Saints to take advantage before the quarterback's new contract kick in. And that's what this is about. Getting value out of him right now and missing the fact that you have a quarterback that will be listed as a franchise quarterback who's a 2nd-round quarterback in the 2nd year of his deal, and seeing as he gets into the 3rd and 4th layers, you're talking about some money. So the Saints looking ahead and understand, hey man, we got to make sure we are viable here, because we know that Tyler Shuck, big money is coming down the line if he shows up and shows out. So the Saints know how valuable that can be. You have some leeway to manage resources. This is Mickey Loomis talking, but you still have to make really good decisions. I think it's pretty well documented that teams have a quarterback on a rookie deal and have been able to do some things over, and have some success. So that's just a part of building your roster and managing it over 2 to 3 or 4 year period that you're facing. And it's a different equation. It's a different math equation, really. The equation is now underway as the Saints are definitely operating and playing more chess than checkers, how they operate and the understanding how to build a team through the draft, how to be able to create that cap space necessarily needed. And like I said, let's just bounce it to Over the Cap that talks about it. As you can see, $13.2 million is basically where the Saints are currently. And this makes a lot of sense because ultimately you'll see in 2027, you'll see this big drop in pay. You'll see what the Saints are dealing with right here. You can see a massive increase, and that's $76.3 million. It was very large originally, but a lot of that dead cap space that we had from the previous situation, that'll be ate up big time. So if you take a look at here, down here, and you look at the bottom layers of it, let me see if I can go back to 2026. You can see exactly what we're talking about here, as the dead money situation is $113.9 million that we'll owe the team in terms of that. So with that being said, it'll be interesting to see how it looks. But $76 million for the upcoming season will be interesting. That's kind of jump ahead and take a look at it. 127, that's at 76.3 mil, and then 28 is 218. So you'll be looking at money for Tyler Shuck and all this kind of stuff, but also recognize 23 players on the total team. You got signing to do, 47 in this year. So that's why it's important to really hit home with the drafted players. We did it last year. We have 8 this year, and that's what that's for, to remain cap compliant and to remain on the plus side of these things and operate within the next 3 to 4 year window and compete in the NFC South. So what do you guys think about the Saints and what they're doing? Do you agree? hear that this is how we supposed to roll, and Saints are looking at and getting prepared to, because eventually, man, Tyler Shuck in that third year, he gonna command a big chunk of change, and the Saints doing well in the draft, man, that could speak well to our progress and being more dominant in the NFC South. Y'all put it in the comments section. Let me know how y'all feel about what the Saints are doing, finally getting standing in the black, doing the responsible accounting with our books, all this sort of thing is what we wanted to do from the get-go, and Kai Hartley is a big part of that. All right, anyway, shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor of the show. Please feel free to check out FanDuel for your prop bets. Hit the like button, sub button, subscribe button, and notification bells, as well as we keep the train moving. For more notifications on Saints, everything Saints, hit that notification bell for the Sports Coma, your official sports Saints authority, and all things matter of black and gold. So with that being said, I'm going to get on up out of here. Y'all let me know how y'all feel in the chat about the Saints money. With that being said, we'll get out of here. Much love, peace. And that Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that?
Hey, New Orleans! Whether you're catching up on Saints news at Jackson Square, checking Pelicans scores in the Garden District, or staying updated on LSU while grabbing coffee in the French Quarter, there's one place that keeps you connected to everything that matters in our city. From Bourbon Street to the Superdome, from Preservation Hall to the Riverfront, New Orleanians are staying in the know with thewhodatdaily.com. Your daily source for Saints, Pelicans, LSU, and all the sports, music, and culture that makes our city special. At work downtown, at a game in the Dome, or just relaxing by the Mississippi, wherever life takes you in the Big Easy, you can stay connected. Because when you're from New Orleans, you don't just live here. You stay in the NO. That's stay in the know. Visit thewhodatdaily.com and never miss what matters most to Who Dat Nation.
Welcome to the Pro Shop, where we create authentic NOLA-inspired clothing for men, women, and children. From Saints jerseys to Pelicans gear, everything's crafted right here in New Orleans. Whether you're shopping the Pro Shop, the Pel Shop, or the Pro Shop Kids, we've got your whole family covered with genuine merchandise that represents our city's spirit. Check for links in the description section below or in the chat.